Congratulations, you have found the Lambcast, the official podcast of the large association of movie blogs, also known as the Lamb. The Lamb is the largest collective of online movie blogs and podcasts with 2,000 members and counting. Every week on the Lambcast, various members of the Lamb community get together to talk about our favorite subject, movies. So bookmark the Lamb and follow us on social media. Be sure to join us each week to hear a lively discussion of films and movie-related talk from our members. Join the flock at largeassmovieblogs.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lambcast. This is episode 727, and I'm your host, Richard Kirkham. This week, we discover that George Taylor is home, Malcolm Crowe is dead, and that Norman Bates is not a transvestite. Spoiler alert, folks. Spoiler alert, in case you weren't aware. This week, we have a general discussion of things that contain twists, surprises, or key plot points. They substantially impact the story that's being told. Now, whether or not it would ruin the movie for the audience to know this beforehand is one of the things that we're going to touch on. Look, some movies have spoiled themselves. They've had their twist right in the trailer or advertising. Others have been around so long that the story twist just becomes well known. Maybe you encountered one of those a-holes who had to shout out that Luke and Darth Vader shared DNA as you were in line to see the movie and they were leaving The Empire Strikes Back. We're going to warn everybody. We're going to warn everybody listening that those kinds of details might be revealed. So if you listen to this episode, be aware and be sure that you're willing to live with the consequences. James Wilson of Blogging by Cinemalike, did you find out that Rosebud was a sled when you went to the toy store as a kid?
You took my opening line. Yes, I did.
Sorry about that. Howard Casner from Pop Art. If we're all already dead, can we turn this podcast into a film that people would pay to see?
You also stole my opening line. It was going to be, I just like to open with, Rosebud was the name of the sled. Ilsa goes with her husband Victor and doesn't stay with Rick. She's her mother and her sister. And Kaiser Sose doesn't exist.
Well, I know that MovieRob from the MovieRob Minute and blog site will probably tell us what's in the box before the show is over.
It's a cookbook. It's a cookbook.
So, folks, I look for a few points to talk about this week, and hopefully you all have a couple of suggestions for people to check into or watch out for. I thought we'd start off with movies that worked because the twist really was a surprise to you. You didn't know it was coming. Things had been hidden from you, and maybe you saw the movie early enough so that it wasn't spoiled for you, and as a consequence, it worked. So, Howard, have you got a couple of examples, just a couple that where the surprise not only appeared, it surprised you, and you thought it worked in the movie?
Well, actually, I did choose three movies. One where the twist is one of the greatest twists in film history. The second is the twist that works for a movie that doesn't really work, but was controversial at the time. And the third is one where I knew what was going on after the first few lines, and there's nothing else left in the movie. And interesting. I also have two runners up, but that's important.
Okay.
My first choice.
Good deal.
Is one of the greatest twists in film history, and that is Witness for the Prosecution, based on the short story and play by Agatha Christie. And I guess we're going to reveal the twist?
Yes, that's fine, yeah.
Okay. Well, it was released in 1957, and directed by Billy Wilder. A man is accused of killing a wealthy widow who had named him as the main beneficiary in her will. The man's attorney assumes the wife will give the man an alibi, but in the end actually testifies against him. However, after that, the counselor gets a call from a woman who claims to have letters that would reveal the wife to be a liar. The counselor meets the woman who reveals she is giving up the letters because the wife disfigured her face. The letters do absolve the man for murder. The big twist, the woman who gave up the letters is actually the man's wife in disguise. When the counselor asked her why she didn't trust him to get her off if her husband wasn't guilty, she said she did it because she knew her husband was guilty, and now having been found innocent, he can't be tried again. There are actually a couple of other twists that follow that.
That's a good one. I like that. I remember that movie very much.
It blew my mind. I mean, yes, I went, oh my God. So.
All right.
And Marlene Dietrich is amazing in it.
Yeah.
It's the whole casting. It's not just
everybody's good in that.
Her Cockney is phonetic, which somehow worked and made it even more impossible to recognize her.
Well, Howard, let's come back to your second one and give James a chance to talk about one that worked for him.
Well, let's do a big one. Let's do Citizen Kane.
All right.
A newspaper magnate dies, and a team of, a newsreel team is making up a film of his life, and it's revealed that his last word was Rosebud. Well, what does that have to do with anything? And the entire movie is the reporter going through and asking all of the acquaintances of Charles Foster Kane, this very powerful man, if they know anything about Rosebud. And nobody does. Nobody does at all. And it is revealed that Rosebud was the name of his sled in the final moments of the film. And it's because Charles Foster Kane was obsessed with his childhood and never... He was taken away from his mother and father at a very young age and put in a conservatorship, and that was his defining regret. It's a lot of Wells finally didn't said that it was kind of a cheap device, but it does say a lot about the character, and it's a very satisfying ending in that the basic philosophy is that you don't really know anybody.
Agree with that. I think for me, the way the ending works for me is that it doesn't tell you anything about Charles Foster Kane.
Well, because no one ever finds out. We're the only ones who find out. The people in the movie never find out what it is.
When we find out, we don't really learn that much, except that he's remembered something from his childhood that he lost.
I mean,
and
maybe it's about loss and regret.
And that checking, the fact that someone is trying to find out what Rosebud is, he's basically chasing after his own tail because, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I like that.
Yes.
It's one of the first existential films, so I'm not sure who else saw it as that.
Well, Rob, what did you see? What movie did you see where the twist happened and it worked for you?
Well, I'm gonna go with another. I'm gonna call it a classic, even though it's not from the 1940s or 50s. But The Usual Suspects.
All right.
Which I actually I remember when I went to go see this in the theater. For some reason, there was another movie that came out at the exact same time called Unstrung Heroes with like Michael Richards and I don't know who else. And that's what I thought we were going to see. And I sit down in the theater and it's not a comedy. I was, so that was the first twist for me, that here I was thinking I was going to see this, this Kramer comedy, and it turns out to be something completely different. And, I remember sitting through the movie and I'm someone who likes to take in all of the clues and everything that's going on and everything like that. And then, I mean, for obviously, I'm going to spoil it, but what it basically comes down to is that I'll explain the plot a little bit. So basically, the FBI are trying to get in touch with they're trying to find clues to finding this supervillain that is going to be wreaking havoc and that apparently took part in some massacre that happened the night before. And so the whole movie takes place in flashback because one of the people that they suspect is connected, and they believe it's someone who's very low on the totem pole, is a small time criminal named Verbal Kint. And Verbal is basically telling the FBI the whole story about how everything came together. And he's talking about the other four characters who are all known as the usual suspects. They get the quote from Casablanca, round up the usual suspects. And these are the five guys that they think are somehow connected. And slowly, Verbal is telling the entire story as to what happened. And we're taking it all in. And then in the last scene of the movie, after Verbal is set free because he's obviously a small fish, and they're still trying to find the big fish. The FBI agent who's been interviewing him realizes that everything Verbal told him was completely made up on the spot based on all these different things that are in the FBI office, in his own office. He mentions that there's this guy named Kobayashi who, when he looks at the bottom of his coffee cup, he sees that it says Kobayashi. So Verbal Kint, this character, made up this entire story just to convince the FBI that they were chasing a red herring. And in the end, we realized that he himself is this supervillain, Kaiser Soze, that they're trying to find, and he gets away scot-free. So for me, it worked so well because you don't expect that twist to come because of Kevin Spacey's amazing acting performance and a great script. I know nowadays it's taboo to talk about Kevin Spacey, but I guess you could say a movie from almost 30 years ago, you can talk about that he did a great job in it. So
that was pretty effective, and it's interesting how the reveal plays out at the end, and you get Chaz Palminteri's sees two or three clues in the room that he's working in, and suddenly it starts dawning on him, and then we get a couple of exterior shots of Kevin Spacey walking away, and we realize either the whole story of Kaiser Soze is made up or he's Kaiser Soze, but either way, the whole thing, we've just been taken in by a story.
Right. I remember walking out of that movie and saying to myself, we just watched, I was with a bunch of friends. I was like, we just watched a movie that nothing really happened. None of it happened. It's all made up. We don't know what really happened.
Like all movies, it's all made up.
Not all movies, but this one was made up by a character in the movie, and the characters are all, are all convinced that it was true.
Yes. Well, my first one is one that I think people will recognize. It is a movie that has two twists in it. And after the first twist happens, I was not expecting the second twist at all. And that's The Crying Game. The first twist is the sudden death of one of the major characters. You've got the opening whole section, and it looks like this is going to be a movie about the relationship between the IRA captor and his captive, and there's a lot of story that goes on in there, and it's all, I think, really well done. And I think it's a two character piece at that point for the most part, and it's working really well. And then suddenly there's an event that happens, and one of those characters is dead, just like that. And we go on to another part of the story, and the follow-up, of course, results in the star of the film, Stephen Ray, kind of falling in love with this woman that has she was the romantic partner of the guy that was his captive before, and he feels guilty about it, and he's trying to check on her, and they kind of get involved in a relationship, and he discovers that she is not really a she. She's something completely different. And that was a nice visual twist in the movie, as well as the story. And there are other twists in the story as it goes on, but that was one where if somebody told you, seeing The Crying Game, there's a twist in the story, you would probably be surprised to discover that there are multiple twists in the story. Yeah. And it worked really well for me.
I remember that the I think it was Hot Shots or Hot Shots Part 2 that in the in the credits they said spoiler of the Crying Game, she's a he. Yeah. Give it to Zucker Abrams Zucker to do that type of stuff.
Pardon me. What was the second one that you wanted to talk about, Howard?
Well, this is the one that was controversial in the day, and it's Alfred Hitchcock's Stage Fright. Uh-huh. And it opens, it's from 1950, and it opens with an aspiring actress who's interrupted at a rehearsal by a friend who claims that this famous performer he's been having an affair with came to him with blood on her dress, claiming to have killed her husband. When the man goes to the performer's home to get her another dress, he is seen and the police are on his trail. Now, the controversy comes because when he tells her about this performer, this famous performer coming to him, it's done in flashback. He relates it by flashback. The twist is that at the end, he's actually the one who killed the performer's husband and lied about it to this friend, this woman, this actress, in order to get her help. What was controversial about it was at this time, flashbacks were always objective. Before then, they were never subjective. And this changed everything. Rashomon comes out the same year. And it changed everything. And people really got on Hitchcock saying, no, you didn't play fair with this. And Hitchcock said, well, it's from his viewpoint. And today we think it's silly because, of course, flashbacks can be subjective if someone's telling them. But at this time, it actually caused a bit of a stir. It's not that great a movie. It's not one of his best by any means. But the twist ending works very well.
Good deal. James, what was your next one?
This one's kind of childish, but everybody remembers this as being a big shock when it first came out, and that's The Planet of the Apes, the original one.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Of course.
A team of astronauts are in a deep space exploratory flight. There is a critical malfunction in the ship, and they crash land on a planet. And what they find is that the planet is actually run by a hierarchy of simians, and humans are being hunted and are pre-verbal and living as chimps would in the wild. And the one remaining crewman of this devastation, the one remaining astronaut, after recovering from a neck wound, is able to talk, which throws the ape civilization into a shock because this human can actually talk. And it's, for some reason, this astronaut, Taylor, wants to convince this ape society that everything is upside down, that humans actually are more advanced, and that he is convinced that something has gone horribly wrong. And the reveal, after he is set free and left to wander on his own, is that this strange planet that he's landed on is actually Earth in the future. Because he goes to riding along the beach and he comes across a destroyed and melted Statue of Liberty. One of the things that I really like about this is that, of course, he was on Earth all the time. All of the apes speak English.
Basic.
There is absolutely no reason for him to suspect that there is, that humans should actually be the more advanced civilization, but he clings to this idea and has his hopes completely dashed at the end, because what happened is, sure, man was dominant.
We blew it up.
But we blew it up because we're idiots. And, his monologue at the beginning of the movie says, somewhere in this universe, there must be something better than man. And he never finds it. People were shocked that this was the final twist. It's kind of weird how it works when you see it again. But one of the things that always impressed me about this movie is that, of course, he's on Earth. Everything looks like Earth. But Jerry Goldsmith's score is practically the only thing that is telling you that this is a weird, exotic, primitive place that you couldn't possibly suspect was Earth. His score is so weird and strange that it just creeps along and lets you know that, no, this is a weird place. This is an alien planet.
I'm willing to give Jerry Goldsmith credit for selling the twist there. That makes sense to me.
And it's another one of those occasions where Jerry Goldsmith doesn't score the movie as is, but scores the movie for what it needs. And it needs that alien, bizarre soundscape in order to keep convincing you that you're on a completely exotic world that has nothing to do with Earth.
Yep.
There's one little scene that is a flaw in the storytelling.
Yes.
And that is when they find this human doll.
Yes.
That when you press it, it says Mama. And Charlton Heston says, see, that proves that there used to be humans, because why would you produce a human doll that talked?
Yeah.
That talked. And I'm going, what do you mean? We have teddy bears that talk.
Yeah.
We have all sorts of animals that talk. It actually would be
I think this was before Teddy Ruxpin, by the way.
Yeah. It would be very obvious that they would actually have human babies that would talk just like we do, here. So I always thought that was odd, but it's a very enjoyable film.
Yeah.
And
this is a movie that I saw as a kid, but it had been spoiled for me by other kids who had talked about it. So I knew what the spoiler was at the end before I saw it, unfortunately. And if you were seeing it many years later, if you were seeing it as a result of purchasing it on physical media, you were screwed because the cover of the VHS box and the DVD basically has the twist right there on the cover.
Yeah,
so no
like
surprise coming there.
Rosebud on the cover of Citizen Kane.
Yeah. Rob, what's your next one?
All right. Well, up until now, everyone's been choosing movies that everyone knows about. So I decided I'm going to go in a little bit of a different direction, since try and choose something that people are less familiar with, even though it will be spoiling, the movie. But have any of you heard of or seen the movie Arlington Road from 1999?
I've heard of it, but I've not seen it.
I've heard of it. Which one is that? Is that the terrorist next door one?
Yes, it's with Jeff Bridges. Jeff Bridges and Tim Robbins.
Yeah.
Right. Now,
I haven't seen it.
You want me? So basically, none of you have seen it. So if I spoil it, that's not a good thing. So watch it. How's that? I'll pick something else. I'll pick something else.
That's okay.
Okay, how about the movie No Way Out with Kevin Costner from 1987?
There you go. Okay. That was one that was going to come up in one of my later categories, but I'll go with it now for sure.
Right. Okay. So basically, the story is about a Navy officer who is basically given the task of trying to again, the whole plot is very convoluted, so I'm not going to go through everything that really happens. But the bottom line is that
we can simplify it.
I'm simplifying it. He needs to find right,
and
he needs to find a Russian spy. And in the end, we find out that he himself is the Russian spy. He basically has to find himself. And nobody knows that. And he keeps being accused. This mole is accused of all these different crimes that he knows he didn't commit. But we only find out at the end that he is the actual mole. We do know that he didn't commit those crimes because, they tell us, the movie shows us who does commit those crimes. But, I liked the way that the movie played out. I liked seeing Gene Hackman, in this movie. He does a great job as he's the president, if I remember correctly, or maybe he's just a senator.
He's the Secretary of Defense, I think.
Okay, all right, Secretary of Defense. Yeah, I knew he's someone who's high up there. Yes, I'm confusing it with what's that other one where he does play the president, which also has with Clint Eastwood, exactly, which also has a nice twist to it. I can't remember offhand right now the name of that movie. Absolute Power, thank you. Which was a much better book than the movie, no question about that. But so the movie worked really well. It because they keep it all very believable. That we believe that he is searching for this mole, but nobody seems to know who this mole is. And he gets closer and closer until it eventually is revealed to us the twist. And the movie has a great cast. So besides Kevin Costner, you have Gene Hackman, Sean Young, Will Patton, George Zunda. I don't know if I pronounce that correctly. Iman is in it. We've got Fred Thompson in there also, which is always nice to see. Fred Dalton Thompson. Marshall Bell is in it. I think that's a David Paymer also has a small role in it. So I think that's a great movie with it's a great political thriller with a nice twist at the end.
I guess I have to sort of disagree here, because for me, when the twist came in, I said, wait a minute. And I didn't believe anything that happened before now. I'm going, this doesn't make any sense at all for me.
Oh, in that later category, twists that don't make any sense or didn't work for the film, that's where I had No Way Out, because it felt unnecessary it just felt like, well, here's something that we can kind of zing the audience with at the end by making Casner
forced.
the Russian
I
spy.
agree. It felt forced, but I'm just going, no, wait a minute. It's based on a movie, or it's a remake of a movie called The Big Clock, which I think is much better. But they turned into
I like this one a little better than The Big Clock, but yeah. I see what you're both saying about this, but I like the way that that this plays out. It isn't one that works so well on subsequent viewings, but the first time you see it, I think it works really well.
All right, well, I've got a courtroom example for you, and this one is sold primarily by a performance, and it's kind of the debut performance of Edward Norton. It's Primal Fear, where he appears to be a abused, nearly schizophrenic kid who has been connected with the murder of a high church official, and his lawyer, Richard Gere, is trying to find a defense for him, and pleading about his mental state, and he's basically taking it, and then we discover that he's been faking it the whole time. He is, in fact, a malevolent manipulator who's capable of passing himself off as an innocent. And I thought the twist really worked in this because of Norton's performance.
I certainly agree about Norton's performance, and it's a very entertaining movie. I even like it, even though the twist doesn't quite work for me, because you have to start figuring out he has these two personalities. When does one appear and when does one not appear? And how come no one in the history of the life of this guy ever noticed there were two personalities? Because someone would have noticed along the way, and his lawyer would have found out, wait, someone figured out that he has two personalities. So when was he being nice? When did he start being nice to fool everybody? And when is he being this evil part? But in spite of that, I highly recommend the movie. I think it's very entertaining. And you're right, Edward Norton gives a fantastic performance. Even Richard Gere is fine. He's good.
Yeah, no, it like I said, it's maybe not a perfect movie, but it's one of those where the twist works because of the performance that's going on there. All right, one more in this category, and then once again, let me just say something about Primal Fear. So, when I saw the movie, I had already read the book by William Diel, Diehl. So I knew what was coming. They make a slight change in the movie from what they did in the book. The last line is, maybe Aaron never existed, and in the movie they make it definitive. So I liked the way that in the book, at least, it left it a little ambiguous, trying to tell us that, maybe things aren't as they seem, as opposed to in the movie where they tell us outright that this is what it is. I still love watching the movie because as you both said, Edward Norton in his debut does a stupendous job here. Just amazing.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's do one more where it worked, and then let's talk about some where they didn't work or some where we were spoiled ahead of time. Howard, what was the last one that you had that you wanted to talk about?
Well, I'll talk about this one. So it's a documentary. And I'm not going to spoil this one because it's recent and it's on Netflix. But it's a documentary called Lover, Stalker, Killer, in which a man who has been dating after being divorced, he starts getting to the dating scene, especially online dating scene, and he breaks up with an ex who then goes missing. And then suddenly she starts threatening him, stalking him, threatening to do all sorts of things to him and the people he knows and his family who live not far away. The problem is they can't find her. No matter how hard they look, they cannot find this person who is threatening him. And then years later, there is a series of twists. You have to see to believe. I mean, you go, this would only happen in the movies. This is something that Harlan Corbin or Gillian Flynn would come up for a movie. You can't possibly believe that this is what happened in real life. So everybody see it. I'm not going to spoil this one because it's just too recent.
Yeah, I've seen it, and you're right. It's like you've got to be kidding me. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
how could this really be what happened? It's like somebody took a bad movie script and lived it out.
Yeah. It's
James,
wild.
have you
And
got one more that worked for you?
Looking at it, yeah, let's move on. We're
Okay. Rob, how about you? Have you got one?
All right,
You
so
work-
let's go. Let's go with Memento.
Oh gosh.
Oh, good, because that's
Memento.
the one I was going to go with. Go ahead, Rob.
So, what am I supposed to say? Pineapple.
No, you go right ahead. Because this is the last one that we're going to do in this category.
All right. So my choice is Memento. I remember hearing about this movie beforehand, and I didn't hear about the twist. I just heard that it is it's an amazing movie. I remember it was like a few months before it came out. I saw like something on IMDb that was recommending it, and I was like, oh, okay. And then I saw it, and I was like, wait a second, it hasn't come out yet. And then I actually saw it twice within a week.
Yeah.
Because it was something that as soon as I finished watching it, I was like, wow, I have to see this again. So the twist of Memento is that it basically is told chronologically backwards. I guess that's the best way to explain that, where each scene takes place and then they give us the scene that comes before it. The premise of the movie is that this main character has I guess a disorder
Short-term
which
amnesia
doesn't
type thing.
allow him, right, which doesn't allow him to remember things very well. So he's actually trying to find the killer of his wife, and he keeps looking. He tattoos on his body all of these different clues in order to try and find the person who apparently raped and murdered his wife. Someone named John G. And throughout the entire movie, we have the color scenes that are moving backwards, and then every so often they give us all these black and white scenes of a conversation that's possibly going forward and stuff like that. And the basic idea is that we're waiting for both of those two stories to converge, and that'll tell us what happens. And basically, at the end of the movie, and I'm sure Bubba, we can talk about this more since he already did a whole podcast, talking about this scene by scene. But the bottom line is that apparently he is constantly solving the same crime over and over and just finding new people to kill. That fit within this parameter. There are a lot of interpretations as to what is really happening there, whether his wife was still alive, whether he accidentally killed his wife. There's a whole bunch of different theories as to what happened, along the way. But for some reason, he has this perpetual urge to constantly find the man who has raped and killed his wife, even though he doesn't know that he's already done it numerous times. And he ends up, the final scene, the big reveal is that he murders the guy who theoretically is helping him. And everything moves on from there, and it's a movie that you have to see numerous times in order to grasp so much of what's going on. I remember also on the DVD that I used to own of the movie, they gave you the option of actually watching it in chronological order, which isn't as thrilling as watching it the way that Christopher Nolan meant for us to watch it backwards.
think that's true. I think it's the structure that makes the movie. I also covered it on Pop Art, and one of the things we sort of agreed on with Lisa Leahy is that we're not sure that the story would make sense if it was done in chronological order. And I think it's my favorite film of his. One of the odd things that I find so true to life is he tattoos, as you say, all this stuff on him so he won't remember. And then the next day, he still doesn't remember, even with these clues. And I like that. I will make a note for a script I'm reading, and I'll write notes about what I'm going to say about it. And the next day I look at it and go, what? I have no idea what that note means.
And you don't suffer from the same amnesia that
makes the movie work.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about some movies where the surprise was spoiled for you before you got to see it. There are probably a lot of examples out there. And in addition to telling us that you were spoiled before you saw it, tell us whether or not it ruined the movie for you. MovieRob, let's start with you this time. Is there a movie where the spoiler, you were spoiled on it before you saw the movie?
Yes and no, because the movie that I'm going to mention is The Sixth Sense. Now, no one told me outright what the twist was, but it was a very well-known thing that there is a twist. So I was able to work out what the twist was myself by watching the movie the first time. So I was sitting there with friends who didn't know what the twist was, and we basically watched two completely different movies, because I was able to figure out quite quickly that since there is a twist, what could the twist be? And then I noticed, that Bruce Willis's character was not physically interacting at all. And that sort of gave it away for me. Obviously, I didn't know every single thing that was going on. Only in subsequent viewings did I figure it out. But I was able to see that his character actually was dead. So did it ruin it? I don't know, because it took away that first viewing. But everyone who was watching it subsequently their second time, they're watching a completely different movie. And so I basically, I guess, was able to see that second shot the first time around.
Okay.
If you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. James, how about you? A movie where you knew the spoiler ahead of time and it either didn't matter or it ruined it for you?
But I have nothing to say. I usually go into these things not reading much, and if it's going to surprise me, it surprises me. No, I don't have a movie where I already knew going in that there was a twist, and I didn't need to. I knew what was coming, other than regular movies where I figured it out within the first half an hour what's going to happen. That's it.
All right. How about you, Howard? Something that you had spoiled for you before you saw it, but you had a reaction to it one way or the other?
No, actually, I can't think of anything, at least not with twist endings or anything like that.
Okay.
But I did want to tell a story that a friend of mine told. And it's about Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. And two people had gone to see the story, seen the movie, and another friend asked, well, what was it like? He said, oh, it's great, especially the ending where Butch Cassidy is elected president of Bolivia. And then he went and saw the movie. And that wasn't the ending at all. And he was furious. Absolutely furious.
Well, you forced me to jump in because I was going to add a story about revealing a twist also. I was pissed off at some friends of mine who had gone to see a movie without me. And to get back at them, I told them that the end of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, here we think all the aliens are really benevolent and everything, and Richard Dreyfuss' character takes off with them at the end, and then they blow up the planet as they're leaving.
Yeah,
And they were
I can see
pissed.
that. Good.
I said, well, that'll teach you guys to, leave me out when you're going to see something.
There was one when I saw was Jacob's Ladder, and the first time I saw it, I knew immediately what was going on. I went, oh, he's caught between life and death, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because of that, the movie didn't quite work for me. I saw it a second time because we were covering it on Pop Art, and knowing the ending then, the movie works much better because I wasn't focused on the twist ending, and it just is. It's a much better ending, actually, much better movie, actually, for me, since I knew the ending.
Well, obviously, there are, when you're a kid, that's one of those things that people want to do. They want to tell you what they saw or what they knew about a movie. And so I'd had Soylent Green spoiled for me, and it didn't matter to me. I liked the movie anyway, and I was very happy seeing it. And I mentioned Planet of the Apes also. A couple more recent ones. It didn't spoil the movie, but they have it right in the trailer. How to Train Your Dragon 2, Pickup's mom is part of the story, and they have it in the trailer selling this, so it's not a surprise when she shows up. And I thought that was a little bit strange. And Contagion, Gwyneth Paltrow is dead. And that's in the trailer. So
yeah, I don't know. I stopped watching trailers years ago because of this. I watch trailers after I see the movie because I still remember this was actually close to 10 years ago when Terminator Genesis came out, and I because I don't watch trailers, so I didn't watch it. And then I saw the movie, and I was talking to a friend of mine. I was like, "Wow, that's so cool! The fact that what they did to John Connor and everything like that." And he's like, "Didn't you see that was in the trailer?" And I was like, "I'm so glad I didn't watch the trailer."
Yeah, those kinds of things happen. And then another one that I remember from when I was a teenager is When a Stranger Calls, because that was a story that was one of those apocryphal babysitting stories that everybody told. The calls coming in from inside the house, that kind of thing.
That's a great
and I
line.
think they'd done the same kind of twist in Black Christmas. So it was a different movie, but it was the same sort of twist that they had in it. So, all right. Well, we touched on it a little bit earlier. Twists or plot points that didn't make any sense and don't work for the film. And a couple of us were not happy with No Way Out. Can you think of other films that maybe there's a plot twist and you're going, that wasn't necessary, it didn't work? Why is that in there?
Oh gosh.
Well, the one that there are two actually for me, but the one that I really brought up here was that I knew the twist after the first couple of lines, and it's Shutter Island.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's about an inmate who's gone missing from an island prison. The problem is it begins in the middle of the water on a ferry. A U.S. Marshal, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, is accompanied by his new partner, played by Mark Ruffalo. And this is where I think I said, oh, the writer made a rookie mistake. They're on this ferry in the middle of the halfway between, and the two marshals have never met before. And Ruffalo introduces him. And I went, okay, I get it. DiCaprio is the prisoner on the island. He's the one that supposedly has gone missing. The reason why I knew that is because if DiCaprio had actually been on the other side, on the non-island side, getting on the ferry, he would have met the Mark Ruffalo character there. Or they would have met immediately once they got on the ferry, and not just, have this conversation where, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm your, I'm your co-investigator. And I went, no. So I went, and once on Facebook says, I don't think you can really validly come to that conclusion. And all I said was, I was right. It's just, one thing about being a screenwriter is that sometimes there's a line that you go, wait a minute, that line doesn't quite make sense. And when you start figuring out why it doesn't make sense, then you go, oh, I get it. And going, the scene makes no sense. The dialogue makes no sense. And I knew. It doesn't help that the story is so convoluted that I sort of gave up on it. And Caprio isn't all that great in it, and things like that. I went, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I have one from just a year or two ago where there's a twist at the end, and you're going, "What? What?" It just didn't work for me. It kind of took me out of the movie and undermined it, and that's Last Night in Soho, which is a great looking movie. It's set in a time period that I really enjoy. The actresses in it are very good, and there's some interesting plot points, but the resolution is sort of like the serial killer is that person. That doesn't make any sense, and it didn't. I mean, it kind of makes sense, but it just seems like it's. It was trying to be clever for the purpose of being clever, as opposed to being interesting and real. And it was a little. It's one of those.
You're right.
And you're right. Yes. There you go. Thank you. Sorry. It's there. It was in my head. Just couldn't get it out. It was. I think it was a little too twisty, and the purpose was to be twisty as opposed to telling a good story. For me, it didn't work. And another one that was maybe 2 or 3 years ago. This guy's name I will remember. Jordan Peele. Us. The plot reveal about what goes on is like stupid. The whole movie, I know a lot of people really like this movie. I thought it was dumb. And when the reveal comes about what's going on, I'm going, come on, really?
No.
It was annoying.
And it makes no sense, and it's not believable. The most recent film for me where the ending just destroys everything is Saltburn.
Yeah.
Where you get to the ending and they have this reveal. And at first I went, oh, that's interesting. And then I go, oh, wait a minute. And I realized now nothing in this movie is remotely convincing or makes sense. Talk about dumb.
Yeah.
It is a dumb ending.
The title of my review is "What This Movie Needs Is a Good Autopsy."
I know that came up a couple of times when we were discussing films at the end of the year, and with kind of the things you were saying, I skipped watching it for that very reason. It just didn't sound like it was something that I was going to appreciate, and so I moved on with my life. It'll probably come up in the queue someday, and I'll say, well, I've got 2 hours of my life that I feel like throwing away. Maybe I'll watch it.
Well,
do you have any stories? Yeah. Do you have any stories about revealing twists or trying not to yourself? For example, Howard and I have both mentioned a couple of things where, twists were revealed that were not real. Do you have any stories of maybe trying to keep somebody from knowing a twist in a movie?
I just did that before when I mentioned Arlington Road.
You were trying to protect us. Yes, thank you.
Of course. No, I actually do have a story. I remember when I think I was a senior in high school at the time when Memphis Belle came out. And I was talking with during lunch, we were talking with some friends about it, and one of the teachers was nearby. And he goes, "Oh, Memphis Belle, I can't wait to see that." And so I said, "Well, it's not worth your while. Everyone dies." And he's like, "What?" He got really upset.
You booger.
There was one where it was. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. And I said, no, just kidding. Go see it. You'll enjoy it and whatever. So, but I still remember saying that to him, and just the shock on his face that had just destroyed this movie.
I was working at a movie theater, and A Good Night and Good Luck was already there, and some people came up, and I thought they'd already seen the movie, and I thought we were talking about a movie they had seen, and I said something about, well, it in the end, McCarthy turned out to be a paper tiger. What Edward R. Murrow did was very brave, but it didn't really matter because whether he did it or not, McCarthy was on his last legs and stuff. And someone said they hadn't seen it yet. I went, oh God. I thought sure they had seen it.
Well, it is history. It's like, is it really a spoiler to show the boat sinking when you see the trailer for Titanic?
Yeah.
Right. That's true. That's true.
I did spend 15 years trying to keep my daughters away from any information about Psycho so I could show it to them at some point. And
that's really difficult.
We would run into toy stores, where they'd have those action figures, and there's a Norman Bates as his mother toy, and I would walk in front of them and kind of keep my back to it so they would never see it. Or if there was a poster or a picture someplace, I would always make sure that we flip past that quickly so they didn't get hold of it. And I managed to get them to their mid-teens so they could see the movie fresh and be surprised by it. And that was a struggle, because that's one of those ones that everybody, it's like the Planet of the Apes thing at this point in life. Everybody knows those.
That's a good father who, is protecting his children from, the vagaries of a serial killer movie, only to show it to them when they're teenagers.
I wasn't trying to protect their innocence. I was just trying to protect the surprise. I knew eventually, look, they're my kids. They're going to want to see this.
Yeah.
Well, I do have to commend movies that have. I was going to say, I do have to commend movies that have these twists. And even if you find out, the movie's still good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That knowing the twist doesn't really hurt it.
And it makes you want to go back and see how they did it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, is there anything else that you can think of that you guys wanted to talk about on these kind of spoilery movies before we move to our next question?
Richard, as you started off the show, by I don't know if you did it on purpose or not, but you basically were quoting The Simpsons with I think it was in the first season where Homer is telling Bart the story of how he and Marge met and how he was born and all that stuff, and they show Homer and Marge come out of the movie theater watching The Empire Strikes Back, and they're walking past people waiting to go in, and he says really loudly, he says, "Who would have thought that Darth Vader was Luke Skywalker's father?" And people online just get really upset at him. So I don't know if you did it on purpose or not, but it was a great callback to that.
Yes. Well, I wasn't referring to the Simpsons, but I know that there were plenty of people in the world who are not oblivious. I think Homer was probably oblivious, but there are people who are just, like I said, a-holes who want to blow it. I know that there was a concerted effort by gay and lesbian groups to kind of destroy Basic Instinct by publicly revealing the killer, because they objected to the way their culture was being presented in this particular movie, and there were concerted efforts to march in front of theaters with the sign saying "so and so is the killer," that kind of thing.
Such a bad movie anyway that you might as well spoil it.
Yeah.
The rationalization of somebody who has made the decision for somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody can come up with a justification for doing that. It's probably still a bad idea, people. We're back. It's time for our exit question of the week. And this time I thought I'd focus a little bit on some of the performers in a variety of movies. And some of them might have been movies that there were reveals in, but I think that most of these probably wouldn't be in that category. Well, what actors have you seen cast against type who were able to bring off the role in spite of their perceived miscasting? So, Howard, let's start with you. Have you got an actor or two that you can name in a role that you would say, I would never have expected them to be in that role, and it worked?
Well, the first one is not so much that, but it is close to it. And we on Pop Art we did Straight Time with Dustin Hoffman, and he's actually miscast. He's totally wrong for the role because he's way too small and he doesn't have the powerful body to reinforce his personality. But he's so good, and he pulls it off, and it's really ends up being a very good movie that not a lot of people have seen and deserves to be seen. The other one is, in a way, really surprised me because I felt the actor had shown some talent, but nothing like this. And that is Adam Sandler in Punch Drunk Love.
Mm-hmm.
And just really, I never believed that he could do something like this. And then every once in a while, he does something like that, intermixed with those stupid movies. He also does.
I think those are a couple of good examples. The Adam Sandler one, I think a lot of people would be. It's easy for them to identify what you're talking about there because he makes those silly movies, and then he does something, and you go, "Really? Wow, that's impressive that he's able to pull that off." James, I suspect I've got one of yours in mind, but I'm going to let you talk about somebody that you think is, cast against type where it really worked.
Yeah, this was one of those things where once you see them do it, it kind of drops out of your mind that they weren't able. You didn't think they'd be able to do it. And the one I'm thinking of is the Christopher Nolan movie just dropped out of my mind, but it was
Insomnia.
Insomnia with Robin Williams. I did not think Robin Williams could pull off something that serious and actually be threatening. And he did a terrific job. I was really surprised. You know that something is going to sneak through with Robin Williams, but he was that disciplined an actor that he could turn off that incredible riffing mind in order to do the character straight. I was really surprised by it.
Okay, good. That's not the one I was thinking you would pick out, but that's okay.
What was the one you thought I'd be thinking?
Well, I'll save it for my reveal.
Very good.
In just a second. Rob, how about you?
Okay, so I have two that I'm going to discuss here. One of them is a no-brainer for me to be talking about, but it's something that at the time nobody believed that this actor was able to pull off something like that. Richard, do you have a guess of who I'm talking about?
Well,
it's a no-brainer for me to be talking about it.
It's a no-brainer for you. Well, I'm going to say that you're talking about Bruce Willis in Die Hard.
That's right. Bruce Willis in Die Hard. Obviously, since then, we know that he can play that role. But beforehand, I mean, come on, he was in 2 movies before that, and he was, Blind Date and Sunset, which are both terrible movies. And then he was also in Moonlighting. And you wouldn't say that type of character could pull off a John McClane, and he did it amazingly. And he built his career on that, so that's the first one I want to mention. And the other one is a one-time thing. In the movie Casino, you have Don Rickles playing a very, very serious role. And I always love watching him play that role because Don Rickles is not someone that I could ever think of playing such a, I guess, powerfully dramatic role. And he just, it's just like I said, blows me away every single time I see it. So that's the one I was thinking of.
Okay, good deal. I like that. I have two very obvious ones, and the first one is the one I thought that James might be thinking of, and that's Henry Fonda in Once Upon a Time in the West.
Yeah.
Okay, very, very true.
Yeah.
Where, his whole career he'd been
without
playing
the contact
these
lenses.
great guys, these nice guys, and he is just the most loathsome creature in this film. And he's loathsome from the very beginning when he kills a kid. He says, people scare better when they're dead. I'm going, yep, this is not the Henry Fonda that I grew up with. So, but it worked because he, in the rest of the film, you just knew that he was not somebody that you could trust at all. And he was going to do loathsome things. And he did. And I thought he pulled it off really well. And James, you sound like you do agree with me.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
agree with you on that one for sure.
He was asked, why didn't you do more roles like this? And he said, nobody ever asked.
Yeah.
It's typecasting. That's, kind of what happens. People see him as a particular type. He's a heroic figure, usually somebody who's very sympathetic. And so he didn't get a chance to play bad guys very often. There was another movie that he was in where he's not necessarily the bad guy until the very end of the movie, and you suspect that he's not really bad guy. Then he turns out to be just as crooked as everybody else, and that's There Was a Crooked Man.
Yeah.
And then the other one that I have, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, and the other one that I have is an actress, and I think everybody would understand this one too. It's pretty obvious, and that's Mary Tyler Moore in Ordinary People.
Yes.
Who, was, sweet Mary Tyler Moore in 2 television shows, and is a cold, unsympathetic person in a situation that is, just unpleasant. And she was, you want her to reach out, you want her to connect with her remaining son in Ordinary People, and she just won't do it. And she feels so unkind in that, and that's not the kind of character that she was usually portraying.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And one that's always amused me, I don't know that it works, but it's just so enjoyable seeing him playing it, is Gregory Peck as Dr. Joseph Mengele in The Boys from Brazil.
Oh, The Boys in Brazil, yeah.
Yes.
Gregory Peck doing Mengele. That's another one where why didn't Gregory Peck get more evil characters? He probably wasn't offered them because he was so upstanding. And once he's played Atticus Finch, it's not exactly going to be let's put him number 1 on the list to be Blofeld.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up here. I want to give everybody a chance to plug their recent projects. I know, James, you rarely have something specific that you want to talk about. Do you have anything, or just want to give the general plug for your website?
The index for blogging by Cinema Light is up. It's glorious. It was a lot of work, and even more work making sure that all the links were right. And I also undertook to clean up all the AdSense ads that were popping up and had gone away, and so everything is kind of spanky new and looks good. So
there you go. Visit the site that's been cleaned up and indexed properly and correctly, so that you can find all the things that are so interesting that James is talking about. I like that. That's perfectly fine.
And our scene this week is Appaloosa.
Oh, very nice. That's with Ed Harris, isn't it?
Ed Harris directed it.
And
Viggo Mortensen.
Viggo
Renee
Mortensen.
Zellweger.
That's right. I like that film. I like Westerns generally, so that's going to be fun. I'll be looking forward to that. Rob, what have you got to plug?
Well, I always have what to plug. So, first of all, on my regular movie review website, MovieRob.wordpress.com, I am closing in on my 11,300th review, which will come a little later this month. And on my podcast, MovieRob Minute, I'm right now. We're in the final stretch of It's a Wonderful Life. We have the last 3 weeks of finishing up this movie, and at the end of April, we will begin season 7, which will be Die Hard 3, Die Hard with a Vengeance, minute by minute. So you can find that at MovieRobMinute.com or any podcatcher that you might use to listen to shows.
Excellent. Howard, what's going on Pop Art?
Well, it's been a minute, mainly because of a combination of a wonderful vacation to Sydney and New Zealand that was immediately followed by my getting COVID. And so I just started getting back to editing the Valentine's Day episode with Richard Kirkham, which was Ghost and Truly, Madly, Deeply. So hopefully that will be up this week because I am almost through with it. And then after that, it should be The Vern with May, December, and A Dream of Passion, both about actors finding someone in a similar situation to the character they're playing in order to get help and how to play it. And then Todd Liebenau with The Fantastic Mr. Vox and Straight Time about 2 ex-cons trying to go straight.
Good deal. Well, I'm happy to promote the podcast that I'm going to be soon on Pop Art. But Howard's already said that, so I don't have to repeat that there. On my site, I'm just same thing as usual there. If I saw it in a theater, I'll have a post up for you talking about it. I'm a little behind because I had visitors drop in, and I've got one movie that I have to take care of. I started a new project called Grindhouse Alley, where I'm looking at exploitation films of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and I'm a little behind on that also. I should be up with a third post on that sometime this week, and I hope people will take a chance to visit there. On the Lamb site, we still have a few days left where you can vote for the movie of the month. In April, it's a movie franchise that we're going to do, and let me see, we have the Matt Reeves Planet of the Apes films, Final Destination, we have the Kenneth Branagh's Hercule Poirot films, and then we have the Nightmare on Elm Street films are all the franchises that were submitted, and it's a very close vote, folks. So if you have an interest in one of those, make sure that you get your vote in this week. Voting closes on April 15th, just in time for your taxes being due.
Yes.
So I want to thank everybody for joining me this week, and it's not a spoiler to tell you that I will not be here next week, but Howard's going to take over the show, and you guys are going to have a great time. Thanks again, everybody.
You've been listening to the Lambcast. If you have an idea for a show or would like to join us on the Lambcast, contact us at largeassmovieblogs.com.
Find us on Facebook, just search for Lambcast, or on X, formerly Twitter, at Lambcast. And you can find us on YouTube as well. The Lamb site can be found at largeassmovieblogs.com. We'd also love it if you would leave a review on iTunes.
Ha 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 ha